Acharya Satta Satta Shishmati Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prabhupada Acharya Bhikti Iskom Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, chapter 8, which is entitled The Sons of Sagara Meet Lord Kapila. Text 12 and 13. 12 doesn't have a purport, and 13 has a purport. So we read 12 together. Na sadhu vado muniko pabhurjita. Ripendra putra iti satpadamani. Katam tamoro shamayam vibhavyate. Jahat Pavitratmani ke rajo bhuva. Sadhu vado muniko pabhurjita. Vipendra putra iti satpadamani. Katam tamoro shamayam vibhavyate. Jahat pavitratmani ke rajo bhuva. Na sadhu vado muniko pabhurjita. Vipendra putra iti sattva-dharmani. Katam tamoro shamayam vibhavyate. Jahat pavitratmani ke rajo bhuva.
Na sadhu vado muni kopabhajita. Nipendra putreti sadvadamani. Katam tamoro shamayam vibhavyate. Jagat pavitratmani ke rajo bhuvaha.
Sadhu vado muniko pabhajita. A little mistake on the second line there. Vipendra putra iti sattvadamani. Tamoro shamayam vibhavyate. Pavitratmani ke rajo bhuva.
Sadhuvado muniko pabhajita. Vipendra putra iti sadvadamani. Katam tamo rasamayam bhavibhavyate. Jagat pavitratmani kerajo bhuvaha.
Mataji.
Sadhu vada muliko pabajita. Nipenda putra iti satvadamani. Katam tamura samayam vibhavyate. Jagat pavitratmani kerajo bhuvaha.
Sadhuvado muniko pabhajita. Nipendra putra iti satvadamani. Katam tamuro shamayam vibhavyate. Jagat pavitratmani kerajo
Not sadhuvada, the opinion of learned persons. Munikopa, by the anger of Kapila Muni. Bhajita were burned to ashes. Ripendra Putra, all the sons of Sagara Maharaj. Iti, thus, Satpadamani, in Kapila Muni, in whom the mode of goodness was predominant. Katam, how? Tama, the mode of ignorance. Roshamayam, manifested in the form of anger. Vibhavyate, can be manifested. Jagat Pavitri Atmani, in He whose body can purify the whole world. K, in the sky. Raja, thus. Bhuva, earthly. Translation by Zivan Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is sometimes argued that the sons of King Sagara were burned to ashes by the fire emanating from the eyes of Kapila Muni. This statement, however, is not approved by great learned persons. For Kapila Muni's body is completely in the mode of goodness. and therefore cannot manifest the mode of ignorance in the form of anger. Just as the pure sky cannot be polluted by the dust of the earth. Then verse 13, we'll read the Sanskrit. Yasherita sankyamai gridei nor yayam mukshos tarate duratyayam pavarnavam mrityu patam vipaschita paratma bhutasya katam pritam mati. Translation. Kapila Muni enunciated in this material world the Sankhya philosophy, which is a strong boat with which to cross over the ocean of nations. Indeed, a person eager to cross the ocean of the material world may take shelter of this philosophy. In such a greatly learned person, situated on the elevated platform of transcendence, how can there be any distinction between enemy and friend? Purport. One who is promoted to the transcendental position, Brahma Bhuta, is always jubilant, prasanatma. He is unaffected by the false distinctions between good and bad in the material world. Therefore, such an exalted person is sama sarveshu bhuteshu. That is to say, that he is equal towards everyone, not distinguishing between friend and enemy, because he is on the absolute platform, free from material contamination. He is called Paratma Bhuta or Brahma Bhuta. Kapila Muni, therefore, was not at all angry at the sons of Sagara Maharaj. Rather, they were burned to ashes by the heat of their own bodies. Om Gyanti Miradasya Gyanti Salakaya Shakshuram Militam Yena Tasmaya Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnu Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Satkarya Swami Tenami. Om Vishnu Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tenami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasyachari Satari. So we are here in the pastime of the sons of Sagara who meet Lord Kapila Dev. Previously, Sagara is a descendant of King Harishchandra, and King Harishchandra, he had only girls, and finally, with the advice of Narada Muni to approach Varuna, he got a son. But then he had promised to Varuna that his son would be put on the Varuna Yagya. And but naturally, King Harishchandra was quite attached to his son, and he wanted to avoid to give him as a sacrifice as a sacrifice animal, as it's called sometimes, for the Varuna Yagya. But that was not to the liking of Varuna, so Varuna as a reaction then attacked Harishchandra, King Harishchandra, who then became diseased because of that attack. And so then Rohita, who when he grew up, he went to the forest to avoid to be called in for that yagya, and then he wanted to come and help his father to get rid of his disease, but then he was not allowed. Lord Indra did not allow him to approach his father and to help his father. And then he had to wait for 6 years. And then after that, the 6 years, then he finally came, but he had brought another person that he had bowed in order, who would then be used for the Varuna sacrifice. And then finally everything was settled, and Vishwamitra gave some last instructions to Harishchandra, and in this way his path was perfected. So then the Sagara, because the chapter, the sons of Sagara, he was a descendant of King Harishchandra and also of King Rohita. Because Rohita followed King Harishchandra. So then, when he was born, his mother was given poison, because the co-wives didn't like that Sagara's mother was going to give birth to a male child, so they tried to poison her in the food. So that's why the meaning of Sagara means with poison, somebody who has been poisoned. But both the mother and the son survived that drama, what happened there. And then, King Sagara, he developed his kingdom nicely. He was quite successful as a king, and then he was going to do an Asvamedha sacrifice, and in order to increase his power and opulence, and so he organized the Asvamedha sacrifice. But then King Indra, he interfered by stealing the horse, the sacrificial horse. And King Indra put a sacrificial horse into the ashram of Kapila Muni. And then the children of King Sagara, they went to look for the sacrificial horse, because without a sacrificial horse, they could not perform the Asvamedha sacrifice, which their father desired to do. And they were, they saw themselves as the servants. They wanted to really, so they went to the area where they thought they could find the sacrificial horse, and they dug up the earth like that, and in the Bay of Bengal. And then finally they came up to the ashram of Kapila Muni, and there they saw the horse. So their conclusion was that Kapila Muni had stolen the horse and kept it in his ashram, which here we from the verses we are reading, we can hear that Kapila Muni is an incarnation of the Lord. So he did not steal the horse, on the contrary, but it was Lord Indra who had put the horse in his ashram. And then when the sons of the king, there were many hundreds, I don't know exactly the number, but many sons of King Sagara, it's explained here in the verse that they killed themselves basically by their anger burned them to ashes. As Mother Sevda Prabhu yesterday said, we all have fire in us, fire for digestion, and anger is also produced from that fire. Fire is one of the 5 elements, basic elements, and we all have been sometimes confronted with our own anger. Sometimes we are even surprised how much intense anger can be. And so the fire of anger is a powerful given, and we have to be careful how to use it. We know from Srila Prabhupada's dealings with devotees, Srila Prabhupada could sometimes show anger, but it was for the sake of correcting a devotee. It was not for venting. Venting is anger. Because sometimes we are so frustrated because we cannot get what we want, and then we are also angry. But that is not very healthy angry. That's not the angry that is manifested by saintly devotee or a pure devotee. That is more anger that comes out of frustration because we can't get what we want, or we cannot satisfy our senses, or whatever happens there, or we identify with things that we shouldn't identify with, and that. But pure devotee also uses anger, but that anger is in order to correct another person. And but sometimes devotees were surprised how Srila Prabhupada could go from being angry to being very relaxed and very, he could switch from one topic from being angry to be very accommodated. Because usually when we are angry, it takes some time to unwind the anger. Anger stays for some time within us, so we cannot switch from one moment to the other. But the pure devotee is using anger in the service of the Lord. He can just switch from one to the other because it doesn't have that fiery, strong element that is taken up by our body and that needs time to cool down. So the sons of King Sagara, as such, they were then they burned themselves by the heat of the fire of their anger. They burned themselves to ashes, and then later the grandson of King Sagar, he his name is Amsuman. He then continued to find for the horse, but that's the continuation of this particular chapter. So I will not go further into that pastime because that will come in the coming days or weeks. And just that there is a festival, a yearly festival, which is called Ganga Sagara, which is celebrated in the Bay of Bengal, and which is like 100 kilometers eastwards from Calcutta. And because in January there is a celebration, and the understanding also is that Lord Kapila is still living there in Ganga Sagar. That's where he has his ashram, and it's a place of pilgrimage where many thousands of devotees go on a yearly basis and take a dip in the place where Mother Ganges comes into the sea. This is yearly, every year is done like in the middle of January, which is here also, but also in India is also, or in West Bengal is also the winter time. And also ISKCON is developing quite a nice temple there in that place. One devotee got some substantial donations and is they're building a nice ashram with nice guest house facilities, etc. where devotees can stay and visit the holy place. And also the Ganges, the name of the Ganges also even in the area of Mayapur, when you look on the map, it's called Bhagirathi River, because Bhagirathi is the person who has then finally requested Mother Ganges to come down to the earth. So here in this verse, it is explained that Kapila Muni enunciated in this material world the Sankhya philosophy. There is the real Kapila Muni, and there is the imposter Kapila. Like you have also, even in Europe, you have, I know in Portugal, there is one big yoga group that is doing it based on the study of Sankhya. So you have Lord Kapila Muni, who is an incarnation of Krishna, and you have also somebody who gave himself the name Kapila Muni, and who is expounding a more impersonal philosophy, where everyone is God, and where things evolve in nature by itself.
And but the Sankhya philosophy is more the analytical understanding. Sankhya philosophy is basically the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but through study, through analyzing the different elements, and by deeper understanding of how to get free from misunderstandings like I, me, mine, and it studies all the elements, it studies the false ego, it puts things in place. So Prabhupada also wrote a book on Lord Kapila, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila takes practically half a canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's a very important part of our scriptures, and where Kapila Muni is instructing Devahuti, because Devahuti, the wife of Kardama Muni, she was the daughter of a king, and Kapila Muni was a great saint. So when they married, she immediately served him very nicely, although she was the daughter of a king. She was able to do this menial service to her husband in a very, very dedicated way. And then Kapila Muni also gave her, Kardama Muni gave her then also fulfilled her desires, also even her material desires. It's a very interesting pastime in that sense, because there is a lot of austerity, and there is also a lot of opulence and a lot of opulent lifestyle, which is all. And then when Kardama Muni wants to withdraw from that Grihastha life, then Devahuti said, well, I'm very happy with everything you have given me. You have given me 9 daughters, and for sure they will all get a nice husband, and everything will be fine. And then she said, but what will I do? Because if you go, and who will take care of me ultimately? And then Kardama Muni explained to her that soon the Supreme Personality of Godhead will take birth in your womb, and in this way he will teach you, and he will take care of you, basically. And then that's what happened, and Kapila Muni came, and then Kapila Muni, soon after his appearance, started to instruct his mother, Devahuti. And Devahuti, having lived with a saintly person, Kardama Muni, so she asked very important questions for, how can I get free from the entanglement in the material world? Because the material world it's not a small entanglement, it's a huge entanglement, and actually without the help of a pure devotee or without a process like the process of Krishna consciousness, we can simply say that it's impossible to get free from the influence of the material world on us. We are simply controlled by the material energy. We are not able by ourselves, with our own efforts, with our own intelligence, with our own understanding, we cannot get free from the influence of the material world. And that's why we, however many times, took birth in this material world. It's not something you can simply cut with a scissor or something. It's a hard work and we have to follow the right process. And that's the process which Kapila Muni gave to his mother and to all of us, basically. It's the process of Krishna consciousness by which, through knowledge, by the means of knowledge, and by the help of disciplic succession, because knowledge, in order to be real knowledge, it has to come down through the line of this disciplic succession. It has to be authorized. It has to be properly linked with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then it's proper jnana, then it's proper knowledge. And then the knowledge has to become vijnana, has to become experienced and practical. There has to be practical application, which is appropriate for where we are and what our situation is. And then gradually we can work on the disentanglement of the material world. And so it's also explained that Sankhya philosophy is, another meaning of it is devotional service, is to engage our senses. Because our senses, our mind, even our intelligence goes all over the place, and unless we align it and we guide it and we make us understand, then we become very bewildered. It's just like somebody. Sankhya Yoga, Srila Prabhupada compares sometimes to somebody like if somebody doesn't eat sugar because he has a disease and he is not allowed to eat sugar. So then when he buys something, then he looks at the packet, what is in here, and there is flour, there is sesame oil, there is some fruits, and there is also sugar. And then, there is sugar, so I cannot eat sugar, so then I should not buy it. So that's an analytical, a simplistic analytical way. So in a similar way also, the Sankhya philosophy analyzes, gives us all the knowledge, all the elements to let us understand, this is good for me, or this is not good for me, or I should, in this particular case, I should act like this, not like that. I should not necessarily follow what my mind says, although I've been used to follow what my mind says, but I should not necessarily do that in this situation because of for this reason, and because I want to achieve a different goal. So in this way, we by reasoning and by understanding and by being connected with the proper authority and the proper spiritual leader and guidance, then we can take the right decisions in our life, which are then very helpful for us, so that we can properly advance in spiritual knowledge and gradually become detached from unnecessarily activities that are distraction for our spiritual life. And with that goes then, along with that comes also taste, and it's not just dry, it's also bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness is alive. And if we follow a certain process for a certain time, then we also feel that. We also feel certain strength that comes from that, and certain vijnanas, certain realizations that come along with that, and that and then with that taste we can then again take a step further on our path, in our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And ultimately, as we know, with the gopis, they have such a high taste and loving feelings for the Supreme Lord that they don't need to analyze so much anymore. What should I do? Or should I do? No, they because once our heart is purified, because we all have already an eternal relationship with the Lord. We are already from eternity, we are eternal servants of the Lord. So basically it's like coming back home once we realize that serving Krishna is what we really want to do. That means that we have come home, basically. We have come back home, because that's our eternal disposition. That's what we are. And that's what everybody is. Everybody in this creation is an eternal servant of the Lord. But for whatever number of lives and years, we have not practiced. So when you practice the opposite, when we put ourselves in the center and we serve ourselves for such a long time, then obviously then we start to think also that we are the master and that we are the ones who should be served. But that's why the process of analyzing all these situations and understanding is important. But once we are back home in our understanding, in our realization, then we can also do it in a more spontaneous, we can practice Krishna consciousness in a more spontaneous way. I just read one verse from the teachings of Kapila Muni. The influence of material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities. because he knows the truth of the Absolute, and his mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When a person does engages in devotional service and self-realization for many, many years and births, he becomes completely reluctant to enjoy any one of the material planets, even up to the highest planet, which is known as Brahmaloka. He becomes fully developed in consciousness. My devotee actually becomes self-realized by my unlimited causeless mercy, and thus, when freed from all doubts, he steadily progresses towards his destined abode, which is directly under the protection of my spiritual energy of unadulterated bliss. That is the ultimate perfection and goal of the living entity. After giving up the present material body, the mystic devotee goes to that transcendental abode and never comes back. The manifestation of devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, and uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. So Krishna consciousness is ultimately a very natural process. Ultimately, just that, like the example of when somebody has been learning harmonium by his own for many, many years, and then when he goes to the teacher told him, to the student who came or didn't know anything about playing harmonium, he gave a prize for teaching that person. And the prize he asked for the one who had been playing harmonium by himself or herself for so many years, he asked a double prize. Because he said, you have to unlearn what you have been doing wrong. So similarly, we need this analyzing the Sankhya philosophy to make us understand what we actually deep in our heart already know, but we have forgotten. So in order to, that's why we need to do so much effort, and we, and we have to so many times, again and again, try and learn and experience by sometimes by making mistakes. We have to rectify ourselves and stand up again and do again better, etc., etc. Because we have forgotten what is our original and eternal position. So I want to stop here. If there is any comments, questions, please.
You were talking about anger. So should we get angry when we see devotees being abused, ill-treated, insulted, or should we just say, Hare Krishna? Should we say let it go, or just do something?
What do you think yourself?
I would get angry and do something.
Yeah, I mean, abuse is a strong thing. I mean, So naturally, if wrong things happen, we should not stand by and look at it and do nothing. That's especially when devotees are, affected. Then we should speak up and we should do whatever is necessary to correct.
Here's one.
So I'm struggling a lot with envy, and it's really ruining my life because, especially my relationship with my twin brother, I feel he's superior to me in everything, and this has come to a level where I can't even have a relationship with him. So I wonder, is it possible how to deal with this? It seems impossible to overcome for me.
What's the question?
He says, I'm struggling with envy, especially with his twin brother, and how to overcome that, how to deal with that. All of us are struggling with envy because ultimately we are envious of the situation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that sense, we are all struggling with envy, and according to what I've understood from Srila Prabhupada, the best way to deal with envy is to serve the person on whom you're envious. Because by serving him, then of course that can be tough, especially in the beginning, and that's why you have to do it with understanding and as to why you do that. There has to be some understanding why that would help you. But by nature we are all servants. That's our nature, and when we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we serve the right person, and then we can also serve better others. Because many people think, I'm serving my neighbor, I'm serving my daughter, my son, it's all fine. But the full service is the service with when we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we get the full realization, then we do what we are meant to do, and then automatically we can also serve better our children, our brothers, sisters, other devotees. We can serve them better if we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead first. So it's not that you start serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead necessarily by serving your brother. No, we have to we have to do what we are meant to do. We are eternal servants of the Lord, so we have to act on what we are meant to do. And then the other things will also gradually develop. So you have to, I don't know how much you know about the Krishna consciousness.
I know something from Denmark. I've come to the temple.
Yeah.
I just wonder if the feeling will ever change. Is it possible the feeling actually change?
Yes, because feeling is it's a temporary feeling, and it's not the right feeling. It's not the right feeling to be envious of your brother. It's not the right feeling. It's a temporary feeling that is there because of some conditioning.
Comparison also.
Some conditioning in the heart. Yeah, I don't know exactly, but some conditioning of our heart makes us be envious of somebody else, but it's a temporary feeling, and it can be overcome. But the way to overcome it is to serve Supreme Lord, and then by serving Him, we will get a broader understanding, and we will also get realizations and how we can best serve the person that we envy. Like menial service is very helpful in our spiritual life. There was one disciple of Srila Prabhupada who was a servant of Srila Prabhupada, and he said to Srila Prabhupada, I see that devotees, they are so much loving you and so much, and I don't have that. I don't have that feeling that I can see devotees are ready to jump in the fire for you, and they're ready to do anything, they are emotionally so dependent on you. But Srila Prabhupada said, no, you're doing your service nicely, and you're doing it as a duty, and that is very much appreciated, and that's a sign of love. So by following that process of Krishna consciousness, then we will get to that point where we understand, and we can also take some guidance, of course, from devotees who are close to you and who have experience. Then you can also take their advice on how to deal with that particular issue. Gopaswami, Prabhu.
Prabhu, because of your important service to Mayapur, you cannot come too often to New Mayapur. Maybe you can give us some information about what is going on in Mayapur. Nice.
Related to this topic about the Ganges, so recently the national government of India, there is an organization, a Ministry of Waterways that protects Mother Ganges, and that also helps sometimes for making bathing places. So this is a very recent development that the Namami Gange Clean Ganges, that's the name of the organization, they gave a subsidy for making a nice, what we call Prabhupada Ghat, where the devotees taking bath now when you go to Mayapur. So they gave a subsidy of $2 million for developing a nice ghat there with 3 levels. So at any time one should be able to take bath with the lowest water, middle or highest water. One should be able to take bath in the Ganges, and there are also facilities like toilets, dressing room, nice facilities, nice looking, and a nice place. That's one of the achievements that was. We have a whole master plan that we would like to develop in due course of time, but it may take many years. There is one devotee, Devakanandan Prabhu, from Juhu. You may know him. He has got a group together of wealthy industrialists who have a soft heart for Hinduism and especially for ISKCON and for Prabhupada, and whom he is cultivating, and he has organized like a group. There are like 10 people they are all billionaires, and they billionaires members not in rupees but in dollars. So and they, he is trying to create a mood. We meet a few times a year. We have meetings and we discuss about different projects that we would like to develop, and they are warming up towards the idea already, like, for example, this Prabhupada Ghat. I would say that without their support, that subsidy would not have come. They didn't give personally that subsidy, but they have, they call directly the minister. They have, strong relationships because they are amongst the top 50 people from India on the level of world. So that's an important development. And then of course the TOVP is going on. The date that Braj Vilas Prabhu is in charge of TOVP, he is also one of the co-directors of Mayapur. 4 co-directors, Jayapataka Swami, Braj Vilas, and then Subhakshana Prabhu and myself. And he has put as date 2024 as the date for the opening of the temple. Opening of the temple, that would mean in that case that the deities move there, but the park would not be very much developed, the west wing of the TOVP would not be developed, but Lord Nrsimhadev, who is in the east wing, that would be, the basic things would be working and finished. And then the main altar would also, main altar means in the center Panchatattva, on the right side Radha Madhava and Astasakis, and on the left side the Guru Parampara. These are the 3 altars in the center of the TOVP, and then Lord Nrsimhadev is on the side. So, yeah, for the rest, there are like around 6,000 devotees living there. Most are Bengali devotees, but also a good number of Western devotees, Russian devotees, and other devotees are living there. And like 1,500 devotees are directly involved in the project with a particular service, like a job, you could say, that get also remuneration, which is, of course, we are in India, so it's a relatively small remuneration, but it's enough for them to take care for the basics of their family. So that's different thing. Some group of devotees, they are thinking of the Mayapur University. Some international devotees are trying to make that happen in due course of time. For now, the national school, Bhaktivedanta National School, is very successful. They do now up to 18 years of age, up to university. But it would be nice if the university could start to develop also. That would be nice, but it's not yet the case. And then you have the international school, then you have some other efforts for nursery, and different things are happening. And you have the Gurukul also. That's of course small number. Small number in the sense that it's like I think 70, 80 boys are there in that school. And that's on the level of education. And we are also trying to work with CSR, that means corporate. That means that a company in India, they whatever netto profit they make, they have to give 2% of their netto income to a social goal. not to religion, but to social goal. But social and alternative goal can be, for example, that they pay for installing solar panels. That's one of our projects that we would like them to do. So every company in India that makes profit, which many of them do, they give 2%, they have to give 2% to social goal or green energy goals like that. So we also try to tap into that resource for doing things such as solar panels, such as centralized sewage system, STP they call it. For the whole of Mayapur, because now, although Mother Ganges is there, we are actually polluting Mother Ganges, So if that can be done, STP, then the water would be to a good known for releasing it into the Ganges without disturbing Mother Nature. So a number of things like that. It's not from the top of my head.
It makes us realize that we are not the only one with big projects. Imagine that sewage on the scale of Mayapur, and we have to do sewage on the scale of New Mayapur. We think it's basic.
We are going to make a new guest house with 240 rooms and with bathroom, and it will be on a little better level, little higher level, like similar to like a 4-star hotel, but with restaurant and that's it.
I'd like to know about there was a training school for future GBCs. How's it going on? Have some of these students become GBC?
Some of them became GBC, like Tapan Misra, Prabhu is one of them. Govardhan, Prabhu from South Africa is one of them. And there's Devakinanda Prabhu from Malaysia is another one. They have followed this course in it's in the, what's the name, Eco Village, which is connected to Chopati Temple, and they have followed the GBC courses there. You can also follow it online, but you have to be present in a few courses, and so that's going on nicely.
Any candidates in France? For France? And Europe? So far?
So, yeah, I mean, normally every country is encouraged to have a zonal supervisor, it's called. A zonal supervisor is somebody who is also trained by the GBC college, and then he takes up the responsibility to assist the GBC in one particular country. Like normally France, ideally, should have a zonal supervisor. Zonal supervisor, it's more or less similar to what we previously had, regional secretary. That's
Who's the one in France?
Huh?
Do we have one in France?
No, not really.
So this role would be actually a younger devotee would be trained in the future to become GBC.
Yes, it would be natural that, but a GBC, you have to be GBC for several countries. Like this zone, France is part of Benelux, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Greece. So that's one zone. That's one GBC for that zone. But then in every country, in Belgium, in Holland, Luxembourg, in France, in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy, and in Greece, ideally there should be a zonal supervisor. who assists the GBC, who reports directly to the GBC, but who is the leader. In reality, he is the leader of the country. And and then when there are like such, like in a zone, how many countries? 7 maybe. So then if the GBC retires or leaves his body or whatever, then out of the 7 zonal supervisors, one of them should then become the GBC, ideally. It's not a must, but organically that's how it should be. That's how it should be.
So it would be nice to actually start to have some maybe yearly meeting in between the zonal supervisor of those different countries of the same, under the same zone of GBC, so that there is some connection maybe in between those countries and those.
But the reality is that in all these countries, there is not even one zonal supervisor. So it's a very theoretical concept at the moment. I mean, Spanish is the most close. They have 3 devotees who form a council, and they take the function of that zonal supervisor. That's the case for Spain, but other countries, Holland, there is not. Belgium, there is not. There is a national council. That's already a good thing. Like France, normally, if you want to progress in that direction, then first step would have to be to have a national council, where the Nouvelle Mayapur, Paris, and Yoga Lyric are all together in one council, come together minimum once a year, can be more also, and then that's how things will start happening. It's by cooperation, you know. Cooperation is not really a choice, it's a must, you know. So, but then things can develop. I mean,
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for your association and coming to my.
so we'll stop here, huh?
We hope to have
Quite over time.
it more.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki jai, Oh, Premanande.